Hello all, Antonio Tambornino here, again with my response to Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and commentary on why we still care about the Star Wars prequels. In the 80s, George Lucas promised fans and moviegoers alike he would deliver with at least 6 more Star Wars movies. This after he delivered with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force. And Darth Vader revealing Luke's true parentage near the end of The Empire Strikes Back. The Phantom Menace came out after the release of Star Trek Wrath of Khan and after Star Trek The Next Generation and Voyager and Deep Space Nine aired. It came out during the airing of Stardate SG-1. The Phantom Menace came out right before 20th Century Fox released X-Men. Part of the appeal of the original Star Wars is how used and gritty everything looked and felt. The Phantom Menace looks way too tidy, polished, and artificial, taking away from some of the warmth that came with the original Star Wars. There isn't much grit in The Phantom Menace. For those who saw the original release of the original Star Wars, as well as the original release of Alien and Blade Runner, this look feels jarring. Instead of a film that looks as though it's inspired by Edward Hopper's Nighthawks, Francisco Goya's Colossus, Francisco Goya's Saturn devouring his sun, we instead have a film that is drawing influence from the work by Doug Chiang, a talented artist who poured too much of a warm, golden tone that went into the work that went into the prequels. For The Phantom Menace, there are too many wide shots and not enough angles that are closer and more personal, taking away from the intense and isolated feeling that came with the original Star Wars. The promises of the atrocities of war are in the beginning, with the destruction of the ship and its first mate that carry the Jedi to their destination, and all the machines that are used as fodder, aliens dying during the pod race, the destruction of the ship that controls the machines, the destruction of the people on board the ship, in the design of Darth Maul. The lightsabers that the Jedi carry that will cut apart anything with one swipe. Similar to the promises Peter Jackson fulfilled with the sword Aragorn acquires in The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King, only Lucas highlights the lightsaber usage a lot more. Lightsabers function similarly to the sword wielded by Shan Yu in Disney's Mulan. There is mention of the effects of war, but the promises that come with the mention remain unfulfilled. Lucas went around his editors to include massive computer-generated landscapes that went into the released film. R2-D2 and Anakin's pod have some grit to them, but the grit is polished away. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan look too much like how Obi-Wan looked in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, and not more like members of the Fantastic Four, the crew of the Enterprise from Star Trek The Next Generation, the crew from Star Trek Voyager, or like the Robinson family from the 1998 Lost in Space, the Chief of Security from the 1998 Lost in Space movie, or like the X-Men from a movie released by 20th Century Fox, or like Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy. Padme's security guard's hat looks like something worn by a Japanese war general, or like something Darth Vader would wear. He also looks like a guardian of peace and justice. Star Trek The Next Generation and Stargate SG-1 pay dues to the Fantastic Four. There is a feeling of a wild circus jumping, but it's computer generated. The line delivery is wooden. Everyone acts as though they are asleep on camera. Lucas copied and pasted the structure from the original Star Wars trilogy into the prequels. This itself feels jarring. It remains unclear in the Star Wars prequels who the main character is. The first plot point in The Phantom Menace is used to introduce a character who needs no introduction. When Lucas has Shmi, Anakin's mom, give a vague description of the boy's upbringing, but fails to describe the boy's father, this explanation, or lack thereof, makes no sense. Lucas tried to pay dues to the Fantastic Four with a young Obi-Wan, a young Anakin, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Padme, one of whom is killed off by the end of the movie. He tried to owe the Fantastic Four's Silver Surfer, with the ship his characters ride to and from Tatooine, and with a equally mysterious and appealing character, Darth Maul. Lucas informs us near the end of the movie that Padme is the Queen in hiding. This new bit of information feels random and out of place, because there was no foreshadowing. Nothing before this moment promising Padme was anything more than a handmaid. The only reason for Jar Jar Binks is the character is created to sell CGI. Jar Jar Binks doesn't just come off as goofy, he also is portrayed as incompetent and shows very few signs, if any, of improving and becoming a character more competent. And he is illustrated as a stereotypical African American. At least Lucas has a sense of humor about the reaction to Jar Jar. The computer-generated imagery has not aged well. The Viceroy are designed to look alien and Asian and are illustrated as incompetent. Watto has a design that would remind people of a stereotypical Jew and is illustrated as greedy, money-focused, and process-oriented. Lucas tried to make the Force explainable from a scientific perspective with the inclusion of midichlorians. This is a break of promises and one of the biggest and final franchise-killing moments, and was very annoying for those who have watched Star Wars and Indiana Jones movies. Imagine the supernatural element released by the Ark of the Covenant in the Raiders of the Lost Ark being explained with midichlorians. Imagine the undead in Pirates of the Caribbean being explained with midichlorians. At least we don't have yet another destruction of yet another Death Star. At least Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is not a white savior narrative. There is a feeling in The Phantom Menace of influence from Edgar Rice Burroughs' A Princess of Mars, which was also influence for Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. An influence that is apparent in Darth Maul, the Hutts, Tatooine. Darth Maul's design isn't just cool because it's scary. Darth Maul's design is monstrous and a characterization of the atrocities of war. John Williams still delivers with a compelling musical score that doesn't distract from what's happening in the film. Lucas had a cool and interesting promise with how Anakin loses the love of his life to his mentor, and has another cool and interesting idea with stem cells and gene editing. Lightsabers are cool because they are brought to life with sounds that sound designers try to eliminate. They are influenced by a sword that is an iconic part of Asian culture. Cops have an edge over others with the guns they carry. For the Jedi to carry swords makes them odd, but odd in a way that's still attractive. In the 70s, George Lucas surrounded himself with talented people, and he listened, including Jack Kirby. The guys who worked with Lucas made the movies Willow and Return to Oz, one of which Lucas himself authorized, just as much as he authorized The Empire Strikes Back, The Return of the Jedi, and in the early 90s, Lucas authorized a book called Star Wars: Heir to the Empire, which continues the adventures of Luke Skywalker and introduces Luke's squeeze and affair, Mara Jade. This book is a New York Times bestseller and has been a favorite among many a Star Wars fan, and is the introduction to a trilogy that has had many who have read it talking. The Phantom Menace is a title that remains the best of the prequels and is one of the few ways in which Lucas fulfilled a promise. Many people have tried to copy Star Wars, while others will try to parallel it. This is Antonio Tambornino saying thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you have an awesome day.